2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Delusions of Grandeur. I'm one of your hosts, but today we are going to go on about the ultimately classic film from 1939, The Wizard of Oz. And here is actually, this is my fiance's copy. I actually have two copies like this, and also the Blu-ray limited edition of the 70th anniversary, which that's the DVD version. That's not that. See,
wow, that looks really nice.
This is how this one comes.
Whoa.
Comes with some of this stuff, and as you can see, this is the Blu-ray part. It looks fairly similar to the DVD adaptation, and see, the DVD comes fairly similar to the way this limited edition seems to come. And I just thought it was kind of interesting. This number is number 231,402 out of 243,000 of these made. So it's a very nice edition of that. And my fiance and I actually just found these for like $8 a piece at the places that we found them at. So you can actually find them relatively cheap. It's just the limited edition is a little bit more pricier. So. Yeah. But on the DVD as well as the Blu-ray, there are also other adaptations of the film. I just wanted to mention them. The first is The Wizard of Oz from 2010 or from 1910. The Magic Cloak of Oz from 1914. His Majesty the Scarecrow of Oz from 1914. Then, of course, The Wizard of Oz from 1925. And these are all silent film versions. And then The Wizard of Oz from 1933, probably a short cartoon. But there have also been other films in the Oz universe, such as Return to Oz, Oz the Great and Powerful, Dorothy and the Land of Oz, which was an animated feature, at least one that was growing up. And then there is the African American version of The Wiz with Michael Jackson and Richard Pryor, and I think yeah. So and then of course there is the Wicked musical stage play, which is has something to do with it. But there are many. Oh, and of course there was the mini series from 2009ish, I think, called Tin Man, which was on the Sci-Fi Channel, which to me it had some moderate success of doing a 3-episode thing, reimagining of the story. So wow. But in any case, yeah, it was kind of cool. The winged monkeys were actually tattoos on the Wicked Witch of the West or whatever. So, but we can definitely check that out down the road. I mean, we did check out The Shining, which was a miniseries. So, what was your first thoughts of watching this film years ago, and what was your thoughts of watching it now that you're an adult?
Well, the first time I saw it, it was very long ago, so I didn't really remember much from it. But when I rewatched it again today, earlier today, and once more with you, well, it was an interesting movie. I can definitely see why it was probably considered a masterpiece in its time. Nowadays, maybe there are some issues with the plot. Some things were seemingly left unfinished and unexplained, but for the time when it was made, it was pretty good.
Well, before I go into my thoughts on this film, let me say what IMDb says about this film. Dorothy Gale is swept away from a farm in Kansas to a magical land of Oz in a tornado and embarks on a quest with her new friends to see the wizard who can help her return home to Kansas and help her friends as well. So, my first, I saw this. I remember seeing it on TV, and I remember it being in like 3 to 4 parts on TV. So whenever we'd watch it, we'd watch it, tape it, and then we'd watch it later, and it would be a long watch.
I can imagine.
And the thing about the Wizard of Oz is that I know that it was a long project. Its director, Victor Fleming, walked off from the project to go and do Gone with the Wind, which is now a film that is so much in the limelight because of its racial aspect of it. It's hard to imagine that he walked away from this film. Because there are many different directors and creative minds that kind of went with this production. I mean, we had Victor Fleming, we had George Cukor, we had Mervyn Leroy, we had Norman Torog, we had King Vidor, and then finally we had Richard Thorpe. Now, King Vidor, I guess he directed the Kansas scenes, the black and white scenes. So, in all honesty, this particular film was directed and written by like many different people in order to get this put together. It's like it like took a while for it to be put together. But the film stars Judy Garland, Frank Morgan, Ray Bolger, Burt Lahr, Jack Haley, Billy Burke, Margaret Hamilton, Charlie Wynn, Pat Welsh, Clara Blandick, Terry as Toto, and of course we had the singer midgets as the Munchkins. So, but what did you think about the character of Dorothy?
Well, at the very beginning, I had kind of mixed feelings regarding the character. At first, I liked the fact that she stood up to this lady, Miss Gulch, if I remember the name correctly. But then again, when her aunt and uncle seemingly didn't want to oppose Miss Gulch, who wanted to get Dorothy's dog killed, instead of standing her ground and giving more resistance, Dorothy just let them have the dog and started to cry. That was the point where I thought she should have fought more for what she wanted. Well, fortunately, the dog was saved eventually, but Still, that was one thing where I thought she should have acted differently, but I guess that's how it was at the time when this movie was made. And
Well,
later on, yes.
supposedly Dorothy Gale was supposed to be a very young girl living with her aunt and uncle, and they did things differently. Women were not really um, were not really independent, um, so to speak, probably.
Well,
um,
at that time, I guess.
and apparently, her dog got in various levels of trouble apparently the farm to either the left or the right of them, which is where Mrs. Gulch comes into play. Miss Gulch is a single woman, probably a widow, who apparently owns half of the town, and it seems like all she really wants to do is just harm the little fella for even going onto her property. Toto, which it looks like he's like in between a Scottish Terrier or something of that breed. What do you think about Toto?
Oh, he's very cute. You know, I like dogs and cats and so on.
And I like to feel like Toto is very much another one of the characters that you tend uh, uh, um, um, tend to think about when you think about a Wizard of Oz. He's very much a part of the story. You know, I mean, it's because of Toto that she ends up getting out of the balloon in the end. It's because of Toto that he ends up finding the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. It's because of Toto that he barks at the cowardly lion, which gets him to come after him. So he's very much to me a main character in the film. What do you think?
Well, indeed, yeah, he definitely impacts the plot quite several times. He is an important character, which is why I kind of have an issue with the fact that in the end we don't get to find out what's going to happen next, because when Dorothy returns to her real world or wakes up from the dream or whatever that ending was supposed to mean. As far as we know, Miss Gulch is still determined to get the poor dog killed, so we never get to find out what happened with that. Did they do something to stop that from happening or what?
True. Oftentimes films ended up with a happy ending in the end, and I think I I think they were trying to find that Hollywood ending where you would kind of think that she ended up, you know, having more friends in the end and just longing for Kansas in the end. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about the plot. So in the very beginning, we have the film is filmed in black and white or silver screen, and we get Dorothy Gale, who lives on a farm with her aunt and uncle, and apparently her dog has gotten into trouble, and she's worried that this Miss Sculch is going to do something with her. So we see the characters of Hunk, Zeke, and I believe Hickory is the name of the third man, who are farm hands on her farm. that her aunt and uncle seem to manage.
Yeah.
What do you think about these characters of Hunk, Zeke, and Hickory?
Well, I must say at the very beginning I didn't pay too much attention to them, but in the end it was interesting to realize that they were supposedly, as far as we got to see, like real life counterparts of these characters from Oz. The Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion.
Yes,
Mm.
which ultimately, what happens is because of this whole situation with Mrs. Gulch, she comes and takes Toto in like a picnic basket, puts her on a basket, and basically rides away with him, apparently, and we are thinking to his death. Um, but Toto escapes, finds his way back to Dorothy, and Dorothy ends up deciding to run away because she doesn't want anything to happen to her dog, and she just thinks that it's the right thing to do at that given point in time. But she ends up running into Professor Marvel on her runaway route, who evidently can see into the future and things like that. And there are some comical moments here. He has kind of a little turban, India looking like hat. And what do you think about this Professor Marvel character? Or did you not really think much of him?
Well, he was a fortune teller, and he mentioned something about Aunt Em being heartbroken, which eventually I didn't understand why, since as far as we know, nothing much seemed to have happened in their world.
Well, I
Mm,
believe it was because Auntie M had realized that she had left and run off, and um, they were talking on the farm that there was going to be a storm.
ah, yeah.
So having Auntie M see that she has left and there's a storm coming, and when Dorothy realizes that her Auntie M could possibly be sick, she starts on her way back. Well, by that time, her Auntie M and her uncle and the three men had already gotten themselves to the storm cellar, and but she didn't realize that, so she couldn't get into the storm cellar, so she went into the house, and as you could see there were tornadoes off in the distance, and
Eh,
oftentimes if this film has been mentioned, that's a very good scene of a natural disaster, of a tornado in the background.
Well, yeah, especially regarding the fact that it really is a pretty old movie, and it wasn't easy to do something like that with CGI and stuff. Yeah.
No, in fact, CGI was non-existent, so they had to
Oh.
do it some other way. How they did it, I don't know. To me, the effects of the tornado in the background were definitely very gloomy. You could tell something was going to happen, and then something did. The glass broke, and she ended up having to fall into a dream. You saw a dream sequence of sorts. You saw Mrs. Gulch riding on her bicycle, and then suddenly turned into a flying witch. In fact, she had actually called her a wicked witch shortly before. So
Yeah.
it's like everything that she had said was coming true. So, what do you think about that whole dream sequence and the storm? And and then her waking up and opening up the door to bright colors.
Well, it was pretty interesting. Okay, the scene when characters were seen flying, when the window was open and we could see the characters flying in the tornado. Maybe it was a bit unrealistic, but still, like I said, really well done regarding the time when it was made. And
How do you know that if you weren't stuck inside of a tornado swirling around, you wouldn't see you wouldn't see shit flying around you?
well, I probably would. It would just probably look a bit different from the way we saw it here.
Yeah, most definitely, because it looked like more like see-through projection more than it did reality.
Yeah, and
But she
yes,
ends up waking and opening up the door, and that's where we get her walking into this very vibrantly colorful little town, and there's all these little people around. What did you think about these characters that and what did you think about when we found out that it was actually in fact Munchkin Land?
uh, well, those characters were pretty fun, and I must say it probably must have taken them a lot of imagination back then to create this kind of fantasy world with such a variety of different characters that we don't see in our world, especially with at the time when it wasn't possible to do CGI, so they had to do it all uh, somehow without much usage of technology. Uh,
No, definitely not. And in these this beginning color scene, we get a lot of different characters involved in Munchkin Land. We get the Lullaby League, we get the Lollipop Guild, and we see the coroner, the mayor of this town, because they are all celebrating the fact that she killed the Wicked Witch of the East, if I remember correctly.
yes, yes.
Because apparently her house had dropped on top of the witch and basically killed her. So, what do you think about that very beginning song, "The Wicked Witch at Last is Dead"?
Oh, it sounds familiar from somewhere. I heard it being sung in some other movies as well. It was pretty good. There are quite several songs in this movie, and many of them are.
Well,
Uh,
yes, one of the most um, familiar is probably "Over the Rainbow," which the lyrics are by E.Y. Harburg. The music is by Harold Arlen. But the first time this song was, I believe, ever sung was by Judy Garland. Um, and you didn't know that it came from this movie, did you?
no, I forgot that because it's been a really long time since the first time I saw it. I was a kid and barely remembered it. And yeah, I did hear that song many times at many places, but I didn't really know where it was from. Shame on me.
Well, and I guess the whole Munchkin Land scenes uh, are basically little skits of songs, vignettes, and these are the titles of what they are. Come out wherever you are. The house began to pitch. As mayor of the Munchkin City, as coroner, I must aver. Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, Lullaby League, a Lollipop Guild, and we welcome you to Munchkin Land. And those are all supposedly known as the Munchkin Melody, or medley, so to speak. And those lyrics were by E.Y. Harburg, as well as the music was by Harold Arlen. So, and then the following song, and this is, so we get this whole scene where the Munchkins are glad that she's dead, but then suddenly someone else appears in a fire of red smoke. Who might that be?
Oh, the Wicked Witch of the West, the supposed sister of the dead witch.
And what did you think about her as a character? She's actually played by Margaret Hamilton, who was also in the movie that we covered, called 13 Ghosts, which is the first film to a remake that Shout Factory put out not too long ago.
Well, she was one of the characters I kind of wish we got to know more about. Okay, maybe some other characters aren't very deeply fleshed out either, but I think the witch should have been regarding the fact that she is supposedly the main antagonist here, and as far as we get to know, there is some sort of conflict between her and the Wizard of Oz, but we didn't get to know exactly what and why, which is, as I mentioned at the beginning, when I said there are some plot holes in the movie, this is one of the things I was referring to. Like, we never get to know what exactly happened.
One thing I'd like to say on that note is that The Wizard of Oz was part of a series of books that was written well before this a movie, and it was a long series for that time by Frank L. Baum, and the fact that they were books before they were this musical adaptation would mean that it was counting on some of its audience to probably know some of the characters enough to be more, paying attention to the story. It's just when this film came out, it was not a success. It was a flop. In fact, it did very badly at the box office, and it took coming to TV in the 1950s. If I remember correctly, 1953 or 1954, for it to even become or be starting to be considered a classic. And now it is considered one of the best films of all time. So, let us continue with the plot. So we have Margaret Hamilton, who plays the Wicked Witch of the West, who shows up in a fiery red smoke, and she notices that her sister has been dead, and she makes accusations against Dorothy Gale, who is standing next to Glinda, who has evidently showed up. Are you a witch? Are you a good witch? That's what the Munchkins want to know. And the thing is, I guess her sister, the Wicked Witch of the East, had these ruby slippers on her feet, and I guess Glinda helped get those ruby slippers onto Dorothy's feet magically, and these slippers, these ruby slippers, are what the Wicked Witch is after, and she can't exactly get them off of her feet. Now, she's got to actually get her to will them over on her own, apparently. So that is why later she is kidnapped by the witch with her winged monkeys. So ultimately, she's told that since she doesn't have her own broom, that the only person in Oz who might be able to help her get her home is this wizard who lives in the Emerald City. What do you think about that idea? Do you think that sounds like a plausible idea?
You mean the idea of a wizard living in an Emerald City?
Yeah.
Well, the whole story is a fairy tale in the first place, so I guess anything can happen.
I guess so. So she ends up following this yellow brick road, and eventually it leads her to a crossroads where suddenly she finds a character. What do you think that character is?
Oh, the Scarecrow.
Yeah. What do you think about the Scarecrow?
He was one of the funny ones. The main thing about him was that, in spite of being supposedly an inanimate object, he was somehow alive, and he was aware of not having a brain, and he wanted to have one. And then he made some funny remarks about how some people who don't have a brain can talk, which is funny. It can almost apply to some people nowadays.
Well, yeah, I would like to say that these characters that she ends up meeting, like the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion, could definitely have some moralistic value on present day people, so to speak. I mean, there are people who are afraid to do everything, and there are people who don't have hearts, so or don't know how to use them, so and don't really know what they are capable of. So I think that there are some definitely moralistic values to the characters that she ends up meeting in here. But the Scarecrow has apparently been stuck up on a pole for many years and hasn't been able to scare one single crow. So she ends up helping him down, and she says she's on her way to the wizard, and he asks if the wizard might be able to give him a brain, and she says, "I don't know. I don't suppose there's no harm in asking." And then, similar thing when she happens across the Tin Man, who apparently was chopping down a tree and had rusted. And he apparently the Tin Man, or at least his creator, hadn't given him a heart. So what do you think about meeting the Tin Man? What do you think about his character?
Well, he was okay too, in my opinion. The Scarecrow was a bit funnier, maybe, but he was okay as well. He had these amusing moments when the oil can had to be used on him and things like that.
Well, yeah, the small little ass canister that you would that you would not think held all that oil.
Yeah, good point.
But and then of course the Cowardly Lion, who at first comes off as a ferocious being, but ends up being very scared of even his own tail. So, what do you think about the Cowardly Lion?
He was he was also pretty amusing at moments. The first thing I noticed was that he didn't actually look that much like a lion. It was very obvious that it was a human actor inside. But yeah, then again, back then it would have been impossible to have a more realistic looking talking lion on screen.
Or at
Uh,
least on a stage of any kind. I actually
mm,
thought the makeup was actually pretty good,
yeah,
at least on the
yeah,
on him. But yeah,
yeah, it was.
you could definitely tell that it was a person inside of a costume.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they also met the Wicked Witch each time they met up. With well, not every time. It was after that the Tin Man and the Scarecrow got together is where the witch decided to throw a ball of fire at Scarecrow and threaten the Tin Man that she was going to turn him into a beehive. Did she?
No, she didn't do that. But eventually she did burn the scarecrow once more, and that turned out to be fatal for her, at least as far as we saw in this movie.
Correct.
Mm.
And ultimately, um, one more time before they reached the City after they had met up with the Cowardly Lion, and he was like, "Well, do you think he could give me some courage?" And she's like, "I don't see why not." And by then, Dorothy is actually saying that she's sure that the wizard can fix him. She's sure now, like she knows that the wizard will actually fix him. Well, um, we have the group poisoned by poppies. What did you think about that particular scene where the Wicked Witch had sprung poppies to put them to sleep?
Uh, well, yeah, at first when they started to run over that area with those flowers, at first I was like, wait, why is nothing happening now if the witch has supposedly cast some spell there? But then, yeah, they did start to fall asleep and so on, but fortunately they got out of there alive.
Well, of course, we got a moment where the Tin Man was starting to cry, uh, and that's when Glinda stepped in and helped them out by I guess making it snow in the
Uh,
area, and they woke up and they got to the City, and they were almost not let in, but except for showing off that she had these ruby slippers. So that I guess called for a horse of a different color. What did you what did you think about that horse of a different color?
oh, those horses were pretty cool. I think we saw at least two. I remember the purple one and the red one. Did we maybe see even more? I kind of can't remember now.
Well, there was definitely a yellow one, and I think an orange one.
Oh,
One. I think I'm not sure exactly how they did that because the horse just ended up changing. The same horse ended up changing color from one
Whew.
color to the next. So that was an interesting thing, I think.
I don't know how, maybe, I don't know if they had hairspray or something like that at the time.
And I'm not sure if anyone was feeling green around the gills, but there was certainly a lot of green
Oh,
worn
yeah.
in the Emerald City by the characters and the city of Oz here. What did you think about the people of the Emerald City?
Well, I guess green was their iconic color. It's in accordance with the name of the city, so I guess it makes sense.
And I guess because of their travels, they were suggested to go to this hair and whatever company that apparently they were able to restuff the Scarecrow. They were able to redress Dorothy, and they were able to give the Cowardly Lion a perm. And I kind of like the iconic song sung here where they're like rub here, rub there, and a couple of lottie das. That's how we have our merry old way in the merry old land of Oz.
Yeah, you seem to know a lot of the songs from this movie.
Well, let's see. There was Over the Rainbow, which was sung by Judy Garland. The Munchkin Land medley. Follow the Yellow Brick Road. If I Only Had a Brain. We're Off to See the Wizard. If I Only Had a Heart. We're Off to See the Wizard again. If I Only Had the Nerve. We're Off to See the Wizard again. And then The Merry Land of Oz. If I Were King of the Forest. The Happy Farmer. I guess In the Shade of the Old Apple Tree, Night on Bald Mountain, Home Sweet Home, Scherzo in E minor, and of course Over the Rainbow at the end, which was more of an instrumental with the MGM Symphony Orchestra. So those were basically all the songs that were part of this musical production, whether they were instrumental or otherwise. So so ultimately we get the witch flying to the Emerald City on her broom, and she writes in black smoke that classic Surrender Dorothy in the sky, and the people run to go see the wizard, and they go run to see the wizard. And if it weren't for her heart wrenching sob about not being able to see her Auntie M and whatnot, she might not have been able to get in to see the wizard. But ultimately, they got in to see the wizard. And what did you think about the wizard at first?
Well, at first I was rather surprised by his kind of aggressive attitude towards them, since it was originally said that he was good, as opposed to the witch, apparently. But then, yeah, he was supposedly intended to be portrayed as scary at that point in the story, which I kind of didn't expect. Well, I was actually even more surprised when we discovered the truth about him, but we will get into that.
Definitely. So ultimately, apparently the wizard is this big, bald-looking head with fire breathing out from both sides, according to the first appearance of him. And he makes everyone so scared to even talk to him. But he sends them off to get the broom of the Wicked Witch of the West. So they end up going into this darkened forest. Well, also we get the Cowardly Lions will run out and leap out the window. But they end up in this forest where all the signs tell them to turn back. If I'd turn back if I were you. And did you see the owls?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Hoot.
Hoot.
So there were some definitely creatures of the forest that were here, but ultimately the witch sends her winged monkeys, which apparently these are part of her minions, because apparently she has these soldiers that are all in green that apparently look like Russian Cossacks. That are part of her armies, but she also has these winged flying creatures that look like monkeys, something between like a monkey and a bat. And they end up flying to. They pick up Dorothy. They strew the Scarecrow all over the place. They pick up the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man, and they basically just drop them wherever. What do you think about this moment? I thought it was pretty creepy.
Yeah, as much as it was possible to create something gruesome at that time, it kind of was, yeah.
More like harpies. But in any case, they realize that they have to go and, I guess, rescue Dorothy. So they end up continuing to the castle, which apparently lives in, and they end up becoming part of the Russian Cossack looking dudes that apparently have green skin. And what do you think about this particular scene? I thought it was kind of funny because you kept seeing the Cowardly Lion's tail out the back end of the costume.
Yeah, yeah, there were some funny scenes with the tail, especially in that scene when he said someone is pulling my tail, and the others were like, "You are pulling it yourself."
Well, they also he did that several times because he pulled his tail when they were seeing the Wizard of Oz that first time too, when he was like, "Oh."
Yeah. Sorry, that's what I was referring to.
Well, in any case, they ended up finding her in this balcony of sorts, up some stairs, because apparently the witch had given her one of those sands of time thing, and once that sand ran out, that was all the time that she had to be alive, apparently. But the whole reason why the lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow were even there was because Toto had actually escaped from the witch's grasp and found them in the forest and led them back to the castle. So that's why, again, I think that Toto is very much a main character.
Yeah, it's an interesting analogy to what happened at the beginning when Toto ran from Miss Gulch, and now from the witch, who is also played by the actress who played Miss Gulch. So Yeah, they seemingly created a connection between these two scenes. So yeah, he saves the day quite several times.
And I have to give a shout out to Frank Morgan, who not only played Professor Marvel, the Wizard of Oz, the Gatekeeper, the carriage driver, and the guard, all in one. I mean, he had to quick change from one to the other. Uh, 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 you know, uh,
Yeah.
and I thought that it was interesting and entertaining that um, more one person could be more than just two characters. He was, in fact, like most of them.
Well, yeah, many actors here did play a double role, but he played more than that.
Well, yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. Even though we had many actors and actresses that played the people of the Emerald City, and I think this was a very good opportunity for people of smaller size for the Munchkin Land. Even though I know probably a few of those were probably just kids, uh, but to find so many actors and actresses that were that small to play those roles, it was kind of cool,
Indeed.
uh,
Yeah,
to to portray that whatever they were trying to portray.
yeah, I was actually wondering if all those actors really were so small, or if they just had children playing them, or.
Nope, they were definitely that small. Most of them. I mean, you could tell that some of them were actually kids, but for the most part, most of them were in fact um, had what we would call dwarfism. So it's
Oh.
it's it's not something I say lightly, because I know that there are people that are out there that would probably take offense to how you
Oh.
would call them a specific way.
Oh, well, I definitely don't want to offend or disrespect anyone, but the truth is, I don't really know the politically correct term for what we are talking about.
Neither do I entirely. That's why I've only said as much as I have.
Uh,
So,
I
um,
understand.
but ultimately, we get Dorothy, who has escaped with her friends. She's cornered by the guards and the witch, and suddenly she sees a pail of water on the floor. Floor. Apparently, she tries to, um, as you said, the witch again tries to burn the Scarecrow. Well, she sees a pail of water on the floor, and she ends up throwing it in the wrong direction and onto her, and she ends up melting to death. And you asked me why did she die that way? Well, I I
Mm.
I believe that was just her weakness. Is apparently her species, or whatever the heck she is, evidently melts at the sign of water.
Yeah, I was kind of left wondering why water would kill a witch. I don't remember hearing any story before where water was a witch's weakness, so I did find that a bit confusing. But yeah, as you say, if the story the movie was based on is part of a longer series of stories, then yeah, maybe it's explained better somewhere out of this movie.
Well, it's assumed that these soldiers were actually under her power or her spell, and so they were happy that she was in fact killed. So they gave her the broom. They went back to the wizard, and again we get the angriness, but then Toto finds the curtain and brings the curtain back and shows us who the wizard really is, and he finally comes out and says that he's not a bad man, he's just a very bad wizard, and ultimately he does give the Scarecrow his brains, and he does ultimately give the Tin Man his heart, and I guess in a sense he gave the Cowardly Lion liquid words of courage by giving him a medal of honor, and what happened to Dorothy's wish?
So her wish was to go home, but yeah, then the wizard said he would have to take her home himself. But as they entered the balloon that's supposed to take them back to Kansas, Toto jumps out. Yeah.
Correct, and because he I guess was a Kansas man himself. He had actually been in a state fair at one point in time, and the balloon took off and brought him by winds of change to this fairly well land of Oz. So he had the balloon already to go if he wanted to go back. So he decided he was going to take her himself, but Toto jumped out of the basket after a cat, of course, because dogs often chase cats.
Yeah.
They are always opposites. And the balloon takes off on its own, but Glinda ends up showing up, telling her she had the power all along. All she had to do was click her heels 3 times and say 3 times, "There's no place like home." And we see another dream sequence where the house twirls and she wakes up, and there these 3 characters are: her aunt and uncle, and even the Professor Marvel looking in on her. And she says those famous lines, "Oh, Annie M, there's no place like home." So, what do you think about this whole ending here? You said that you had a problem with that.
A little bit, yeah, because at that point she kind of Dorothy kind of makes it seem like her life at home was perfect, when we clearly remember from the beginning that it's far from that. Actually, there were we actually saw Aunt Em dismiss her and ignore her, and didn't really seem, to me at least, she didn't seem as kind as Dorothy was saying she was. And then there was also the fact that Miss Gulch wants to kill Toto, and we didn't get to know what happened with that. So yeah, I kind of thought that was another plot hole in the movie, but as you say, now I know the movie is the story of the movie is actually a part of a whole series of stories. So maybe whatever was left unanswered here is maybe answered in other stories that I'm not familiar with.
So apparently, there was a plot that was cut from this particular film of a spoiled and selfish princess in Oz who had outlawed all forms of music except classical music and operetta. The princess challenged Dorothy to a singing contest in which Dorothy's swing style enchanted listeners and won the grand prize. Originally, the part was written for Betty James, but this was later dropped. Apparently, another scene that was removed before the final script. There was an epilogue scene in Kansas after Dorothy's return. Hunk, the Kansas counterpart to Scarecrow, is leaving for an agricultural college and extracts a promise from Dorothy to write to him. The scene implies her romance will eventually develop between the two, which also may have been intended as an explanation for Dorothy's partiality for the Scarecrow over her other two companions. This plot idea was never totally dropped, but it is especially notable in the final script when Dorothy, just before she is to leave Oz, tells the Scarecrow, "I think I'll miss you most of all." So
interesting, yeah.
That's kind of interesting that Hunk is kind of more of a romantic angle, which I wonder if he was that way in the novel, or if he even existed in the novel. But apparently, in the original script, they had only written the Scarecrow's part in as only that he could scare crows. And in the original script, the Tin Man was a criminal that had just been turned into a Tin Man and rusted for many years. So it's definitely a different story than it originally started out being.
Yeah.
So, if you had to have a favorite scene from this film, what would you take from it?
Well, probably the scene when it was revealed that the Wizard of Oz was actually just a human performing behind these. I don't even know the English words for the devices he was using.
I'm not even sure what you could call that machine. I would say like a replicator of some sort, like a projection machine, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
On a larger scale of some sort, because it was a holographic image that he was portraying of that big, large, humongous head.
Yeah.
Something out of a Star Trek episode.
Well, kind of, yeah. They did have quite a bit of imagination for sci-fi technology already at that time. But yeah, I guess that would be my favorite scene because it was the most surprising and unexpected plot twist. And
I would have to say the whole segment where she met the Scarecrow. I get a kick out of the fact that he's like, well, some people go this way, well, some people go that way, well, and some people go both ways. And she's like, wait a minute, a Scarecrow wouldn't be able to speak. and of course that whole, well, some people supposedly do a whole lot without brains. But
yeah, that was one of the funniest lines in the movie.
So you could say that this was definitely in part a comedy, eh?
Yeah. It's just that, as I already said, I wish we got to know more about the story of each character, especially about the conflict between the wizard and the witch. But yeah, as you say, there are probably other parts of the story where we get to know more about that.
Well, I think that the character of the witch has grown over time because in different adaptations, since and before, each adaptation has been, a little bit more added to it, and th- um, I know that the character of the Wizard of Oz was also in Once Upon a Time,
Oh,
TV series. Um, I think it was also in. There were also characters of the Wizard of Oz. I think in Supernatural. Um, there was the many other adaptations that I told you about, and I think that there were some other animated features as well that I have not, like. I think there was one that was called The Legend of Oz that was more recent, and a few others. But in any case, I think we've talked about music enough. We talked about the various directors and things like that. What did you think about the production of the film? Do you think that the world of Oz and the setting of Kansas and things of that nature were those pretty well done?
well, for the time when it was made, definitely, yeah.
I also got a kick out of apple trees that threw apples at them. I thought that was
Oh,
kind of comical.
oh, indeed.
Where the one was like, "What are you doing?" And she was like, "I was hungry." She said she was hungry. She was hungry. Well, don't worry, Dorothy. What do you mean, don't worry? Well, it's just that she doesn't like little green worms. Oh, you. So that was just priceless. I don't know. I get a kick out of this. I know it's probably one of my favorite films. If I had to say a mainstream, although because it had such a struggle to get to the screen, and because it didn't really have a whole lot of people liking it at first, it had a long way to go to reach the hearts of people, and I think it now is a cult classic of many people's, and I think it speaks to a lot of people because of the moral values and the fact that we all want to live in a fantasy world.
Indeed.
I mean, I wish it would just that simple that we could just hit our head and there we are in our dream world, and living it, and then be able to come back and shit like that. So,
Mm, definitely.
I mean, I'm sure there's many fantasies that we could probably dream of that are probably either more adventurous or more erotic. I don't know, but there are definitely thoughts in mind of what our dreams might be able to be. And the thing is, I guess the whole reason why they did it in the dream sequence is because they weren't sure that the audience was ready for Oz to be a real thing. So that's why they put it as a dream sequence instead of a more of a reality. So
Uh, yeah, that's something that kind of confused me, especially because I know that there are other stories taking place in the same universe. So how is that possible if the whole thing was just a dream that had a beginning and the end? And if it was all just a dream, then how is
it
it
was.
possible?
I don't know. It was quite a dream. First you dream of little people, then of course talking trees. Then of course you're talking to a scarecrow. You're talking to a tin man. You're talking to a lion, and lo and behold, you're talking to a bunch of green people. So,
Yeah, definitely.
but in any case, I think that I would recommend this for all ages. I think that adults can enjoy this film if they have not, and I think that kids very much if they were into this type of a fantasy world can definitely get into this. Yeah, there are some plot points that might be a little bit unbelievable once you hit your teenager years, but when you're a kid, you're not really worrying about plot. You're worried about entertainment and something that is enjoyable. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at it and analyzing it like we are in this discussion, then that's when you're like, okay, why did she fall into a pigsty and not get dirty? Things like that.
Oh yeah. I did mention that when we were watching the movie.
So other than that, I think that this was a very good discussion on this film, and we
I agree.
you could definitely go a deeper dive on this, but my thoughts on this is that I thought that it was a very entertaining film. I liked the music behind it. I mean, there may have been one or two songs that might have been a little weaker than the other, but I feel like this is a very well-rounded musical. And I think it's one of the better musicals that are out there. Musical adaptations that are brought to film, and I think there's a lot of world building of the Frank L. Baum universe in here. So even just like every adaptation before for this, they had to have a start and an idea behind it first. And I don't know. I thought that that it adapted pretty okay to screen for what they could do at the time with the makeup and all that jazz. I thought they did a damn good job on the makeup and all that jazz.
Definitely.
I'm just looking to see what kind of awards this eventually got, and seeing if it actually got. Let's see. Okay, connections, alternative version, crazy edits, trivia. Oh, okay. When the wardrobe department was looking for a coat for Frank Morgan, Professor Marvel or the Wizard, it decided it wanted one that looked like it had once been elegant but had since gone to seed. They visited a secondhand store and purchased an entire rack of coats, from which Morgan, the head of the wardrobe department, and director Victor Fleming chose once they felt one they felt gave off the perfect appearance of shabby gentility. One day, while he was on set in the coat, Morgan idly turned out one of the pockets and discovered a label indicating that the coat had been made for L. Frank Baum. Mary Mayer, a unit publicist of the film, contacted the tailor and Baum's widow, who had verified that the coat had at one time been owned by the author of the original Wizard of Oz books after the filming was completed. The coat was presented to Mrs. Baum. So that's kind of cool.
He did.
That the fact that they went and thrifted around for some coats and they found one directly related to the author of the film of the book that the film was related to. She's many of the Wicked Witch of the West scenes were either trimmed or deleted entirely, as Margaret Hamilton's performance was thought to be too frightening for audiences.
Oh, now that would be interesting to see.
Oh, a longer cut of her scenes?
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Judy Garland thought it difficult to be afraid of Margaret Hamilton because she was such a nice lady off camera. The Munchkins are portrayed by the Singer Midgets, named not for their musical abilities but for Leo Singer, their manager. The troupe came from Europe. Many of them were Jewish, and a number of them took advantage of the trip to stay in the U.S. in order to escape the Nazis. Professional singers dubbed most of their voices, as many of the midgets couldn't speak English or sing well. Only two are heard speaking with their real-life voices, the ones who give Dorothy flowers after she has climbed into the carriage. Interesting. Dorothy's iconic red slippers now live at the Smithsonian Institute and are so popular that the carpet in front of the attraction has had to be replaced numerous times due to wear and tear. The famous Surrender Dorothy sky writing scene was done using a tank of water and a tiny model witch attached to the end of a long hypodermic needle. The syringe was filled with milk. The tip of the needle was put into the tank, and the words were written in reverse while being filmed from below. There was an added phrase to Surrender Dorothy, which was "or die." It was cut before the movie premiered.
Oh, wow. I wonder if those deleted scenes can be found anywhere nowadays.
It would be nice to see what it could have been. Wouldn't it?
Definitely.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's all the time that we have for today, folks. But definitely surrender Dorothy before next week, because we are going to return to Oz in next week's film from 1982, if I remember correctly. The film, let's see, Return to Oz. Yep, 1985 actually, and the film stars Fairuza Balk as Dorothy Gale, and it is not a musical. So stay tuned for next week as we continue in our Ozploitation go through. I figured this was a nice little journey to watch some of these adaptations in this vein. So thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Like, share, and subscribe. And have a great evening, everyone.
Yeah. Have a great evening, everyone.